Hello kids! Today we're going to talk about a piece of Bugera equipment. Bugera gets a bad rap online all the time from the purist snobs. It drives me nuts. I mean, not everyone can afford to buy a $2,000 head and then another $1,000 for the cabinet. Spend $3,000 on amplification. In fact, most of us cannot, come even close to that. And in this case, 1/10 of that price gets us into this little rig. I have here the Bugera G20 Infinium. It's powered by two EL34s, and this is interesting because typically the EL34s are in 50 or 100 watt amps. Two EL34s is capable of generating 50 watts of output to the speaker cabinet. But the way they have this G20 wired, they're running it at 20 watts. Okay, so you still get that EL34 tube voicing, but it's only at a mere 20 watts, which makes it perfect for small gigs and bedroom playing. It's plenty loud. 20 watts of tube power is plenty loud. The amp, I took the front face off and I took the cage from the back and I put it on the front because I like that look. I don't know why. I like the look of the cage. My PV Valve King, it's got that cage. I've had a few tube amps that were, I did the same thing with. I had another Bugera I did that with. I did that with the 1990. Anyway, back to this one, the G20. It's Class A amp. It has power, standby. It has a master volume. It has reverb. It's got this morphing knob that works with the EQ, and basically they call it a UK voice or a USA voice. Basically all it does is it either brightens up the overall EQing or it darkens up the overall EQing. Okay, I've been playing it on the USA side. The UK side is to me it sounds a little darker and a little more sag in the EQ. The USA side is more articulate. You've got treble, middle, bass. Then you've got your controls for your two channels. It's a 2-channel amp. You've got the overdrive channel is the first channel here, and you've got volume and gain. And then for the clean channel, you have a tone setting which can set the overall EQing for this channel. I run it kind of bright. I've got it at about 3 o'clock there. And you've got volume control for the clean channel. It comes with this handy foot switch. It's got lights on the foot switch, a red light on the channel switch. If the channel switches, if the light's off, you're on clean. If it lights up red, you're on the overdrive channel. And this switch switches on and off the reverb. Okay. This is, I got it on, using my Les Paul Tribute, my Gibson Les Paul Tribute, and I've got it on the neck pickup, which is a Gibson 57 Classic. And I'll give you a little idea of what this sounds like dry, and then I'm going to kick in the reverb. Very, very nice clean channel. Here's the reverb. pickup is a DiMarzio Super Distortion. All right, I'm going to kill the reverb, kick in the overdrive. Okay, that's with the bridge pickup backed off a little bit. It's very responsive to your guitar volume knobs. I've got the tones wide open on here. I'm going to turn it up. Now, that is with the gain setting on the overdrive channel at next to nothing. The little, you probably can't see it, but the little dot is right there. You got all the way around to go. This thing will produce a lot of gain. But to do that, I'm not going to change it because when you go and crank the gain up, you got to change the EQing. Because the way I have the EQ set right now, it won't work for a much higher gain setting. I have to re-EQ it at the end. But there you go. That's the G20. It's a really nice little boutique style amp. It cranks. It runs off of, like I said, it's got two EL34s in the power section and two 12AX7s in the preamp section. One thing I recently found out, you know, amp manufacturers like to purchase tubes from companies, and it's really whoever gives them the best deal. It's not what sounds best in their amplifier is what I've seen, because they change all the time from company to company. Marshall does it, Fender does it, except Fender seems to stick with groove tubes. But I've seen the same tubes coming out in new production Marshalls, Marshall branded tubes, the exact same tubes that are coming out in these Bugeras, that are Bugera branded. They're Shugwangs. I think I'm pronouncing it right. It's a Chinese tube. They're not bad. Before, Bugera was shipping with some pretty crappy tubes, and I was immediately yanking them out. This time, the only tube that I pulled on this one was the preamp tube in the V1 position. I wanted to give it a little more of a articulate, little, you know, keep the bite, but give it a more cleaner, articulate sound. So I pulled the Bugera branded Shugwang, and I put it in a tongue sol. And that's the one I like in V1 on all of my amps. All my tube amps have a tongue sol in V1. And then usually, if it's a 3 preamps or 3 tube setup in the preamp, the way I will run it is I'll have the tongue sol in V1. I'll put an Electro Harmonix 12X7EH in V2 and a Sovtek 12AX7 LPS. It's a long plate. It does really good in the phase inverter position in the PI. That would be V3. That's the way I set up all my amps, and it works out really well. For EL34s, when these tubes die, which, you know, they're pretty robust, they'll be in there for the next couple of years, but when they die, I'll replace them with Electro Harmonix EL34s. I really dig the sound of the EL34s. They're broad bandwidth. You know, they're very articulate across the bandwidth. They're very musical sounding, and I like them. I've tried different ones. I've tried JJ's. I've tried Sovtek's. I've tried Rubies. And Rubies are they're just rebranded other manufacturers' tubes. Usually Russian. Sometimes I think I've seen them sometimes with Chinese tubes. But yeah, I really like the Electro Harmonix. they sound really nice. So there you go. That's the Bugera G20 20-watt all-tube Class A amplifier. If you're looking for something to gig with at a club, you know, you're looking at about, I think it was $350 is what they're selling for at all the music sellers' websites for the head. And then this Carvin cabinet is pretty cheap. Come up for between $150 and $200. So for, you know, around $500, you have a really good sounding, versatile. It's got an effects loop. You can plug your modulation pedals into it. You can also plug your crunch pedals into it too, and go through the clean channel, and it sounds pretty nice. Yeah, $500 gets you an all-tube club rig or bedroom rig that has enough power to do it in small room situations. You don't need to have the 100-watt half stack at a little club because you'll never be able to turn it up loud enough to make it sound good. The big amps, they don't sound right unless you turn them up, and you know this if you're looking at tubes. So you want to get something that's lower powered, but you know, still is able to do the gain that you want to do if you're playing rock and roll. This is not a metal amplifier by any means. It can get into that metal territory, but it's good for classic rock, hard rock. You can do 60s rock with it. The amp's pretty versatile as far as that goes, but getting into that really hard, tight crunch metal stuff, you know, nah, it's not the amp for that. You'll want to look somewhere else for something like that. Anyway, you guys have a great day. Thanks for watching. I hope this review was helpful. God bless. And as always, peace!